Hello, I'm Dr. Roger Elmer, Advanced Neurospinal Solutions, and today we're going to be discussing auditory processing. One of my patients asked me, what is auditory processing? And we're gonna talk about it in brief, and then we're gonna talk about it a little bit more in detail. In brief, auditory, all of the learning disorders are on the left side of the brain, which means the left side of the brain is lower or weaker, and all the behavioral disorders are on the right. You have a weak or a low right cortex. And we tend to call it a cortical developmental delay. If it's ADD, ADHD, or any of the autistic spectrum disorders, which is a right brain problem, then you're dealing with a weak, undeveloped, particularly frontal lobe, but it's a right cortical problem. So we call it a right cortical developmental delay with a functional disconnect syndrome, which means they can't talk to each other. And imagine if you have a Pentium 5 on the left and a 286, which is my mom's first computer, which is one of those dial-ups, and that they can't talk to each other. And that's what we've got. The right side is not only weak, the left side is also very, very strong, and they can't communicate one with another. So that's another part of the problem and issue. Whereas with learning disorders, they are on the left side. Whether it's dyslexia, any one of the reading disorder problems, auditory processing, visual processing disorder, those are left brain. Patients like that usually tend to be very docile and social. They're wonderful people. They don't have the huge behavioral problem that the right brain kids have with the autistic spectrum, Asperger's, ADHD, ADD, what we used to call ADD, and all the things that go with that, OCD, ODD, and that. They don't deal with those kinds of issues very often. They're usually pretty sweet, but they have struggles with putting things together. So auditory processing is a left brain problem, and it's more significant even because almost all of the auditory circuitry and pathways are on the left. It happens that way because when we're growing, when we first develop, we are strictly developing our right brain, or mostly developing our right cortex, because the right cortex is a brake pedal and it's keeping us alive. And so everything's about staying alive after we're born. And so all those issues get handled mostly through the right. But then when we're pretty much got being alive okay, and we're hitting the toddler phase, and we're getting into crawling, and then toddling, and then walking, and all of that, we start to shift to the left side, and that is why almost everybody has all their speech circuitry and pathways on the left. So if we were to draw the left cortex here, the left side, here's the frontal lobe. As the information comes in on the left side, in the temporal lobe, it comes to another area, where a secondary area where it gets triaged, and where we're telling what things are. Say, wow, that sounds like waves or seagulls or whatever, and it triages that to appropriate areas within the brain. But it also says, oh, that sounds like words, and all of the things that relate to words go to an area towards the back of the temporal lobe called Wernicke's area, or for you neurologists, Wernicke's area. That area tells it's a word. Doesn't tell what it means, it just tells us that is a word. Then it will ship through there to an area, the angular gyrus, or Geschwin's. It's called Geschwin's area. Geschwin's is sitting right on top of it in the parietal lobe, and that is where the definition is. And I don't like the word definition, I like the term value. That's where the meaning, and particularly value, because value is three-dimensional, four-dimensional, and it expands as you're growing. As I was a little boy and I hear the word father, that had certain meaning. Then later I became a father, and now I'm a grandfather, and that meaning has expanded, and even though it's the same meaning, even though it's the same word, the meaning has changed over time. Well, that's Geschwin's, where the meaning is housed. Then it comes forward here for our response into Brokaw's area. Broca's area is where we formulate or motorically create our response or our speech response. There's also an area underneath that allows us to write, to take that and turn it into writing with our right hand. And so these are those speech areas. So you can imagine that anything that happens anywhere on this area would affect speech. If it happens on the highway, if we were to hammer the highway with a bomb, it would affect the ability to get back and forth to wherever those places go. But the brainstem also has things that run the different areas of speech, right? You've got the lower area of speech, you got the pharyngeal arch that does some of the speech, you got the breathing mechanism that relates, all those factors, that's all housed within the brainstem, which you were developing through, as we've talked about before, the sucking and suckling reflexes, and through the swallowing and that, all of that. So imagine if something happens within the brainstem, it's going to affect the ability to even use that area to make speech. But when we talk about auditory processing, we're talking about the ability to take signals, take stuff from the outside, turn it into signals, and get it to the appropriate area within the brain and be able to turn that into meaning or understanding. When the teacher's standing up in the front and holds a picture of a house and asks the student, "What is this?" and the student's looking at it and he can't tell what that is. And she says, "It's right here, take a look." And he's having trouble integrating the circuitry that relates to turning her speech and the information that's coming in, the visual processing that's coming in, and knowing what that thing is. You may see somebody listen to the speech and they know what all the words mean individually, but they can't put it into a meaning or an instruction or that. That is more what auditory processing usually means, rather than we've got something out in that. But each one of those areas could contribute to the ability to integrate. And so we have to look at each one of those areas. But auditory processing, like I said before, is a left brain issue because it's auditory and because also it's a part of the learning disorders problems and that. So if you have any other questions about any of those things or would like more detail, let me know and we'll do another video. Thanks.